Today I wanted to do a quick review of a new saber on the market. This saber is another one that's kind of difficult to name. This one is from the Pach store. They call it a Kyojin, or a tiny giant. However, last time I did a review on a saber from the Pach store, the Hitchrin, the same thing applies here. This saber is sold by Spartan Sabers, it's sold by YDD Sabers, it's sold by by several other saber manufacturers. They give it all kinds of different names. But as far as I can tell, it comes from the Pach store, which is an Asian outfit. Now, I've jazzed this one up a bit, so imagine this thing all silver. I'll actually post a picture. Let's see how good's my editing. Right there. Alright, so anyhow, this is a really small saber. It's one of the smallest that I've ever seen. To give you some idea, though, this is very similar in design to the other smallest saber I've ever seen, which is a Vader's Vault Tempest. Alright, I'll go ahead and give the camera a close-up of those. So you notice a very similar design. Now, I'd be loath to call this exactly a knockoff of the Tempest, simply because there are sabers from Sabermock that use this pretty much the same design. It's kind of a relatively straightforward design, and part of what makes the Tempest is this little fountain pen window right here, which that one doesn't have. So I'm not exactly going to call it a knockoff, but I am going to call it a very similar saber. You notice that I jazzed this one up a bit. Like I said, this is a present for my son, so it's got a Batman on it and a grip. It just comes solid silver. At any rate, this is the Tiny Giant, and you can see that it deserves the name. It is definitely tiny. Alright, these things come with 7/8 inch blades, so you can see they're a little bit narrower than a Tempest, which takes a standard 1 inch. Alright, let me go ahead and take the blade out there. Got 2 set screws and a fairly deep set, which is actually pretty nice. It sets all the way down to here, so it's actually fairly sturdy. The blades that they come with have a little wrap on the tip here to sort of keep the tip from falling off, which looks a little bit goofy, but is actually pretty nice and functional. But a 7/8 inch blade, if you're not used to these are much noticeably thinner and lighter than a standard 1 inch. Alright, some other features of this thing. It's got that inset bit here for the grip. The Tempest has that as well, but with the leather wrap you can't tell as much. A bunch of different ridges. There's an LED set screw under this black ring right here. The bottom unscrews. They use a wire mesh for the vent and sort of a free-floating speaker here. Alright, so not the best setup, but I guess it gets the job done. And the whole thing holds together fairly well. Okay, we have a recharge port right here, rechargeable batteries. Let me see if I can actually get you a view of the LED, because the setup there is a little bit different. If you could see that, you have a fairly weak LED in this thing, but it's not as noticeable simply because of the setup of it. It's an LED with a small optic on it, and the blade actually fits down around the outside of the optic, which is a rather different design. But let me go ahead and put the blade back on a bit. Let's talk about brightness. These things are single color blades. They are very, very inexpensive. I think their list price is $59, but the shipping's kind of high. But $59 for a saber like this is actually a pretty good deal. By comparison, this Vader's Vault Tempest right here is about $500. So very different creature, which is why even if you do consider this a knockoff, I don't mind, because I love this Tempest, but I'm not going to be able to afford a couple of these things. Okay, this, very good dual wield saber. Let's look at features. Alright. You notice we've got a decently bright blade. Even though it's got that relatively dim LED, the optics and the fact that it fits in actually funnels the light up pretty well. Okay, single color, green. You notice we've got sound. There's one built-in sound font. It knows swings, clashes, and it's got a lockup if you double tap the button. And then power off. So not a lot of features, but again, in a saber that costs less than a lot of hilts, it's fairly nice. Let me go ahead and show you brightness compared to the Vaderswald Tempest, which is well renowned for its brightness. So you notice this little sucker holds its own rather well. Very compact design, about an inch outer diameter down here. So this is about as thick right here as the blade on that one is all by itself. So there you have it, Tiny Giant. I actually really like it. It works really well for a double hand saber. They clean up well without adding grip or anything like that. They're fairly plain, but as you can see, a little bit of embellishment makes a world of difference on these things. Very light, kind of short blade, but definitely a good buy on a saber, I would say, especially for what they cost. Hopefully this has been of use to you, and if it has, please join me back for more reviews and subscribe.